The Stranger Things finale just gave us one of the most heartbreaking and heroic death scenes in the entire series, and we need to talk about Kaylee. Number 8. The girl with illusion powers who we haven't seen since Season 2. She came back for the final season, and her death in Chapter 8. The right side up wasn't just emotional, it was the key to saving Eleven. Let's break down exactly what happened, why Kaylee sacrificed herself, and how her final act of love changed everything. After the gang defeats Vecna and destroys the Upside Down, they make it back to Hawkins only to find Dr. K and the military waiting for them. The military rounds everyone up, and Eleven slips away. Lieutenant Akers confronts Hopper at Hawkins' lab, demanding to know where Eleven is. Hopper, being the protective father he is, refuses to give up her location. But Akers isn't playing games. He pulls out his gun, and in a moment that happens so fast you can barely process it, he shoots Kaylee. Kali drops to the ground, bleeding from her gunshot wound. Everyone is in shock. This is the girl who helped Eleven discover her powers in Season 2, who showed her she wasn't alone, who represented a different path. And now she's bleeding out on the floor of the same lab where they were both tortured as children. But here's what makes this scene so powerful. Kali doesn't just die. In her final moments, she makes a choice that saves her sister's life. As Kaylee is dying, she uses the last of her strength to create one final illusion, the most important one she's ever made. She makes everyone believe that Eleven went back into the Upside Down and died when the bombs went off. Think about what that means. Kali is dying in pain, barely holding on, and instead of using those moments to say goodbye or ask for help, she focuses everything she has on protecting Eleven. The scene where everyone thinks they're watching Eleven die is actually Kaylee's illusion. Mike is screaming Eleven's name. Hopper is devastated. The entire party is watching their friend sacrifice herself. But none of it is real. It's Kali using every last bit of her power to create this false reality while the real Eleven escapes. And the only reason this illusion works, the only reason Eleven gets away, is because Kaylee gives her life to maintain it. Let's talk about why this sacrifice is so powerful. Kaylee and Eleven didn't have an easy relationship. When we met Kaylee in Season 2, she was angry and vengeful, hunting down the people who hurt them in the lab. Eleven almost joined her, but ultimately chose to go back to Hawkins, to her friends, to be a hero instead of seeking revenge. But the finale shows us that Kaylee never stopped caring about Eleven. When it came down to it, when Kaylee had one final choice to make, she chose to save her sister. There's something incredibly tragic about Kaylee dying in Hawkins' lab, the place where she was held prisoner as a child, where she was experimented on and tortured. She escaped years ago, built a new life. But in the end, she comes back to this place, and that's where she dies. Yet there's also something poetic about it. Kaylee's powers were always about illusion, about controlling perception. The lab used those powers as a weapon, but in her final act, Kaylee takes those same powers and uses them for love. She creates an illusion not for revenge, but to set her sister free. The timing is crucial. Kali has to maintain this illusion long enough for Eleven to actually escape, to get far enough away that nobody can track her. She's bleeding out, dying, and she's using her fading consciousness to keep this massive illusion going. Every second she holds on is another second of freedom for Eleven. She's literally dying to buy Eleven time, burning through the last moments of her life to give her sister a chance at peace. What makes this even more heartbreaking is that Eleven doesn't get to say goodbye. She doesn't get to thank Kaylee, doesn't get to be there when her sister dies. Eleven is escaping while Kaylee is creating the illusion. She figures it out later when Mike reveals the truth, but in the actual moment, Kaylee dies alone, surrounded by the military, in the lab where their nightmare began. Lieutenant Akers doesn't even realize what Kaylee's done. He thinks he just eliminated number 8. He has no idea that in killing her, he gave her the opportunity to save Eleven in a way nobody else could. Kaylee's death looks like the military winning, but it's actually the moment Eleven gains her freedom forever. Kaylee's final act bridges everything we knew about her character. Throughout Stranger Things, we've seen different approaches to trauma. Eleven chose connection and vulnerability. Kali chose anger and revenge. But in the end, Kali's final act shows growth. She doesn't die seeking revenge. She dies protecting someone she loves, giving 11 the gift of freedom through sacrifice. Whatever anger she carried, whatever violence she committed, in her final moments she chose love over everything else. Based on how her powers work, Kaylee probably knew creating this illusion while dying would kill her. Maintaining something that complex, for that long, while bleeding out, there's no coming back from that. She made a conscious choice to trade her life for her sister's freedom. And here's another painful layer. She had to make the illusion convincing enough that everyone truly believed 11 died. The grief had to be real for it to work. Kaylee made 11's friends suffer through thinking they lost her, because that's what it took to keep 11 safe. In the time jump to 1989, when Mike finally reveals the truth, you can see the weight hitting everyone. They grieved for 11. They held a funeral. They spent years believing she was dead. And now they learn it was all Kali's gift, her way of protecting 11, even in death. Relief that 11 is alive mixed with renewed grief for Kaylee, who really did die that day. The fact that we see 11 alive at the end, hiking through remote locations with 3 waterfalls, free and safe and finally living a normal life, that's Kali's legacy. Every peaceful moment 11 experiences, every simple joy of being normal instead of a weapon, exists because Kali used her dying breath to make it possible. 11 gets to be Jane now, and she owes that freedom to her sister's sacrifice. The Duffer Brothers made an interesting choice having Kaylee return just to die, but it's perfect. Kaylee's arc in Season 2 was about anger and revenge. Her arc in Season 5 is about growth and sacrifice. She didn't need multiple episodes. She just needed one final choice, one final act of love, to show who she really was underneath all that rage. And she made that choice without hesitation. Lieutenant Akers will probably never know what he actually did. He thinks he took out a dangerous threat. He doesn't know he gave Kaylee the opportunity to pull off the greatest illusion of her life, that he actually ensured 11 would escape forever. It's a perfect irony. So here's what happened. Kaylee died at Hawkins' lab, shot by Lieutenant Akers. In her final moments, she created an illusion that convinced everyone 11 had died in the Upside Down. This allowed the real 11 to escape and start a new life in hiding. Kaylee's sacrifice was deliberate, selfless, and successful. 11 is alive and free because Kali chose to spend her dying moments protecting her sister. Kali's death is heartbreaking because it's senseless. She didn't die fighting Vecna or saving the world from the Upside Down. She died because a scared military officer pulled a trigger. It's brutal and unglamorous. But that's what makes her final act so powerful. She took that senseless death and gave it meaning. She turned a tragedy into triumph. She made sure that even though she couldn't save herself, she could save the person who mattered most. In the end, Kaylee's story is about redemption and love. She started as a girl consumed by anger, seeking revenge. She ends as a woman who sacrifices everything for her sister. That transformation, that final choice to love instead of hate, that's her real power. Not the illusions she could create, but the love she was capable of giving. Kaylee died a hero. She died saving her sister. And 11 gets to live free because number 8 refused to let her story end in that lab. Rest in peace, Kaylee. Number 8. In your final act, you showed us what was really there all along. A sister's love, stronger than trauma, stronger than anger, stronger than death itself.